News with no bias, news with no exception, delivering nothing but the truth. This is 24 Hours News. I am Eugene Urbano, the market voice of the PS unions.
Serving you the hottest and the most daily news of the hours. This is Marty Pinlac Tamayo, your news, our business.
Disaster is a sudden, calamitous occurrence that causes great harm, injury, destruction, and devastation to life and property. It disrupts the usual course of life, causing both physical and emotional distress such as intense feeling, helplessness, and hopelessness. Its impacts may include loss of life, injury, disease, and other negative effects on humans' physical, mental, social well-being, together with damages to properties, destruction of assets, loss of services, social and economic disruption, and environmental degradation.
And looking at the response or a lack of it, after a back-to-back storm in a matter of time, the government disaster readiness is put to the test. The nation already bruised by the coronavirus, many did not see this coming. After the shock, disbelief and despair and demand accountability. The loud call for climate justice and more cries for help is an also too familiar sound. Year after year, one decade after another, front and center, high stakes accountability and disaster response, and more importantly, awareness. For the headlines, Disaster Risk Reduction Management Concepts, Principles and Trends, or Republic Act 10121. Lian Oshas has the news. Lian?
Dave, the disaster risk reduction is a term used for reducing and preventing disaster risk. The risk, on the other hand, is the concept of chance or possibility of an event and its negative consequence. Disaster risk is expressed as the likelihood of loss of life, injury, or destructions and damage from a disaster in a given period of time. To determine the disaster risk, there are three aspects that need to be present. Number one, if there is hazard. Number two is vulnerability to the hazards. Number three is the form of coping capacity. Hazard is the danger condition refers when there is a threat. If there is a danger situation involved in which have a potential causing injury, it can be called hazard. Exposure and vulnerability, on the other hand, are distinct. They are different. We can say that a certain community can be exposed but not vulnerable. Not all exposed are vulnerable. It depends on community's characteristic. A building and structure in Japan, that is one of examples, so they are exposed in earthquake, but they are not vulnerable since their architectural and engineering design are earthquake-proof and assistant. The capacity refers to the ability of the people, organizations, and systems using available skills and resources to face and manage adverse conditions. It is important to keep in our mind that disaster are not natural. They only occur when people lack of preparedness or the ability to cope with hazards. We can use the following formula. The Philippines is also prone to tropical cyclones due to its geographical location, which generally produce heavy rains and flooding of large areas, and also strong winds, which results in heavy casualties to human life and destruction of crops and properties. The RA 10121 is a proactive approach. Dave, what is good in this law is the disaster management. We're already prepared, already take an action before the disaster strike us. Because as I mentioned earlier, that the disaster only occur when there is a lack of preparedness. This is Leanne Oshas reporting.
For the role of youth in disaster preparedness and management in school community, here is Crisel Maicon and Cheska Madel Navarro.
The youths are the hope of the nation. It is not only applied in a certain area, but as a whole. It is important to involve them in preparation for unexpected phenomenon because they are mostly the ones that have the energy that is useful for times of trouble. There are 3 roles of youth in disaster preparedness and management in school and community. First, sharing the message. Young people can be advocates to promote disaster preparedness, but for them to accomplish that role, they should be educated first and master the art of being alert all the time. Social media has a big impact in sharing the message, especially because the millennials mastered the use of it. It can be the means of sharing ideas, tips, and the promotion of disaster preparedness and management. As students, they can be good role models to their schoolmates and also outside the school.
Acting as change makers. Youths are active. They can participate in seminars and workshops to apply and share what they have learned in disaster preparedness and management. Thus, even though they are young, they can be leaders and teachers in implementing safety for all. Participation is always the key if you want change. Bringing creativity. Youths already have this modern mindset. They are capable of performing higher level of strategic thinking that can be useful in creating more ways of promoting disaster preparedness through videos in social media, ads, campaigns, games, recreational activities, workshops, and so on. Because of their creative minds, they are able to come up with beautiful ideas to prevent unwanted phenomena, such as recycling to lessen trashes to prevent flood. They can use art to solve such problem by inventions and experiments. This is Crisel Felin reporting.
Here is Rochelle Camorongan to help you know more about basic life support. Rochelle?
Basic life support is a type of cardiopulmonary that can be used in life-threatening emergency situations. It involves delivering high-quality chest compressions and ventilations and the use of an AED if necessary. BLS courses and certifications are required for healthcare professionals and others who need to know how to perform cardiovascular life support. To give a brief summary, the process of basic life support goes like this. First, make sure that the scene is safe, then check the patient for a response. If there is no response, you should open the airway by using the head tilt chin lift maneuver. Then look, listen, and feel for breathing. If there is no breathing, call for an emergency services and send for an AED. Then you immediately need to begin chest compressions and rescue breaths at a ratio of 30:2. Give 30 chest compressions followed by 2 rescue breaths and then repeat the cycle. When the AED arrives, attach the electrode pads and follow the spoken and visual commands of the device. It will determine if the patient has a life-threatening heart rhythm and deliver an electrical shock if necessary. If no shock is advised, you can continue CPR until the emergency services arrive. This is Rochelle Kamurungan reporting.
For search and rescue, here is Jasmine Manilin and Raxin Doria.
The importance of search and rescue during disaster is to become the savior of life that is in danger. For example, flood. They are the authority to be responsible of evacuating people to the safe place such as evacuation center. They have the ability to give assistance line, first aid, heavy equipment to help the people from that area and more knowledgeable other in this scenario. Ang search and rescue ay nagmadaling mag-organisa ng pag-rescue para maisalba ang mga mamamayan na nasalanta ng flash flood. Ito ay kasunod ng heavy rainfall at thunderstorm na nagresulta sa malawakang pagbaha. Ang search and rescue operation ay mahalaga dahil sinasalba ng majority population ang mga rescuers and sa retrieving ng mga labi sa insidente.
To discuss about a search and rescue is an operation mounted emergency by services, often well-trained volunteers to find someone believed to be in distress, lost, sick, or injury or either remote or difficult access area, such as mountain, desert, or forest, or at sea. The importance of search and rescue, its main role is to search for seas and carry out rescue operations for the survivors of aircraft or vessel accidents. What are the proper steps to be taken for the rescue operation to be successful is to rescue trapped survivors of a disaster. Then first aid should be provided to the injured people. After first aid is given, further medical help should be arranged.